Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rudy McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The United Nations expressed concern on Friday that no aid would be delivered to Palestinians via the Rafah crossing with Egypt, while Israel continues its search of the Shifa hospital in Gaza City. Israeli soldiers found a tunnel used by Hamas militants nearby. The army said they also discovered a car filled with numerous weapons inside the facility. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel is doing all it can to protect civilians as it battles Hamas in Gaza, including dropping leaflets warning civilians to flee. However, he also said that its attempts to minimize casualties had not been successful. Elsewhere in Gaza, fuel shortages have forced telecom providers to shut down phone and internet services. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees said it was hard to plan humanitarian relief truck convoys because communications were down and gasoline was unavailable. In its annual report for 2022, published on Thursday, the Observatory on Intolerance and Discrimination against Christians in Europe recorded an increase in hate crimes against Christians compared to the previous year. They list 792 hate crimes against Christians in Europe in 2022, compared to 679 incidents the previous year. Germany is particularly affected, followed by France, Italy, and the United Kingdom. The research shows that there has been an increase in the number of arson attacks against Christians. The increase in arsons at churches is particularly noticeable at 75%. The US bishops are saying that scholarships, single-day and weekend passes will be available for the National Eucharistic Congress, which will take place in the US state of Indiana in July next year. The Lucas Oil Stadium, home to the Indianapolis Colts, will host the event from July the 17th to the 21st. It's anticipated to draw up to 80,000 Catholics. According to the official website, more than 30,000 tickets have been sold so far for the event. The Congress concludes the 3-year National Eucharistic Revival Initiative by the US bishops. While addressing the bishops during their fall General Assembly in Baltimore, Bishop Andrew Cozens of the Diocese of Crookston announced that over $250,000 had been raised in a solidarity fund to provide scholarships to individuals who want to attend the conference. The Oklahoma Supreme Court rejected the state superintendent of schools' requests to intervene in a case involving the first Christian charter school in the US. This decision could be detrimental to the school, as the dispute may jeopardize its opening plans for the upcoming academic year. Last month, State Attorney General Gentner Drummond filed a lawsuit against the Oklahoma statewide virtual charter school board, claiming the state's religious liberty safeguards were breached by the founding of St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School. The Oklahoma State Department of Education and State Superintendent Ryan Walters attempted to intervene against Drummond's file. The request was turned down by the State Supreme Court this week. The court said the department and Walters could submit a brief as amici curiae, meaning friend of the court, in the case by the end of the month. The American bishops voted almost unanimously in support of declaring St. John Henry Newman a Doctor of the Church. The Committee on Doctrine of the US bishops asked the prelates if they agreed with a petition filed by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of England and Wales, requesting the Vatican to declare Newman a Doctor of the Church at their annual Fall General Assembly in Baltimore on November the 15th. Bishop Daniel Flores, who's the chairman of the Committee on Doctrine, brought forth the proposal, which was voted in favour by some 240 bishops. With just 2 bishops voting no, the American prelates decided to send a letter to Pope Francis conveying their support to the English and Welsh bishops' proposal. Several American bishops, including Bishop Robert Barron of Winona, Rochester, Minnesota, spoke vehemently in favour of the proposal. The National Council of Resistance of Iran is reporting that Iran has been on an execution spree since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, killing over 100 anti-regime activists and ethnic minorities. The body pointed out that the regime has increasingly been carrying out executions and demanded that the international community ostracize Iran. The nation has carried out 649 executions this year alone, according to Amnesty International, which ranked it as the second highest executioner in the world in 2022 after China. The organisation said on average 3 people a day were executed by Iranian officials in May alone. Meanwhile, Iran has also come under fire from a UN General Assembly committee for violating numerous human rights, including harassing and discriminating against women and girls. The resolution called on Tehran to stop discriminating against women and denounced sexist practices and policies of the Iranian regime. A Yale University study published on Thursday reveals that more than 2,400 Ukrainian children between the ages of 6 and 17 have been forcibly taken to 13 facilities across Belarus since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in early 2022. The 39-page report shows that children had been transported from at least 17 cities in Ukraine's Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia regions in what Yale researchers described as an ongoing practice. 392 children were sent to 12 different facilities, while more than 2,000 youngsters were brought to the Dubrava Children's Shelter in the Minsk region of Belarus between September 2022 and May of this year. The report said Russia's systematic effort to identify, collect, transport, and then re-educate Ukraine's children has been facilitated by Belarus. A woman in Massachusetts has been found guilty of federal civil rights conspiracy and violation of the so-called Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Paulette Harlow was found guilty of taking part in a pro-life blockade of an abortion clinic in Washington, D.C. in 2020. She could face up to 11 years in jail and a large fine. Prosecutors said that she and 9 other pro-life activists have been charged with offences connected to a sit-in in October of that year, during which they prevented access to the clinic. However, due to serious health concerns, the 75-year-old was not jailed right away after being found guilty in the U.S. District Court of Columbia. Judge Colleen Collar-Cottelly, who oversaw the bench trial, permitted Harlow to stay under house arrest until her sentencing hearing on March 19th next year. Felix Maradiaga, a former presidential candidate and president of the Nicaragua Freedom Foundation, visited the UK Parliament requesting assistance in freeing political prisoners, including Bishop Rolando Alvarez of Matagalpa in Nicaragua. Maradiaga was greeted by members of the House of Lords, including Jeremy Purvis and John Alderdice. He briefed them on the state of political prisoners in Nicaragua and the necessity of enforcing harsher penalties against those who perpetrate crimes against humanity and corruption. His visit to the UK comes just a day after Bishop Silvio Baez received an award from the Any Democracy organisation in Washington, D.C. The prelate repeated his demand that Daniel Ortega's dictatorship free Bishop Alvarez, who had been wrongfully imprisoned on charges of betraying his country. According to research by the Pro-Life Campaign in Ireland, the Irish government has spent €46 million on the provision of abortion since it was made legal in the country, and not a single cent on promoting alternatives to abortion. In reply to a parliamentary question by Deputy Carol Nolan, the campaign's spokesperson Ailish Mulroy highlighted data showing thousands of abortions were carried out in 2022. The research shows a 33% increase in the abortion rate during that year. She said the post-pandemic retention of telemedicine, along with the cost of living crisis, led to the surge in abortion cases. Vandals broke into the Basilica of the Sacred Heart in France on Tuesday night, stealing multiple sacred items and damaging the altar. The prosecutor's office has confirmed the vandalism in the 19th century basilica in the Archdiocese of Rouen, but said that the Blessed Sacrament was not affected by the act. Local police have started an inquiry to find the vandals. Meanwhile, the parishioners of the basilica took part in a mass of reparation on Thursday night, followed by 2 hours of Eucharistic adoration. According to recent research by the Observatory on Intolerance and Discrimination against Christians, France ranks third among nations with the highest number of anti-Christian hate crimes in 2022. The traditional Christmas decorations in Bethlehem won't be present this year. The Palestinian city's municipality made the choice as the war in Gaza continues. According to local authorities, the manger square in front of the Basilica of the Nativity will not be decorated with a conventional Christmas tree or other holiday decorations. On the other hand, the entire religious part of the festivities will be observed, starting with the traditional Christmas Eve Mass. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again next time for more, and do remember you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.